All right, it is Thursday, the 7th of September. You're back for part B of what is looking towards our final or final-ish episode for Tiger Town podcast for 2023. I'm Zac and Toby. Carrying on from what we were talking about last night, Toby, mate. We were running our eye over the key recruits from last year, those being obviously Johnny Bateman, David Clemmer, Isaiah Papali'i, Happy Side Coruscant, and then Charlie Staines to a lesser extent. Now, in part A, we'd wrapped up with you talking about Papali'i. My thoughts basically on his performance this year has been it's a pass mark, right? So,
yeah.
I think you'd made mention in part A the fact that we weren't using him correctly, and you've spoken about that with Johnny Bateman as well. And I don't think that there's a more perfect example of not using ice properly than not using a player properly than what we've done with Isaiah Papali'i. I think towards the end of the year, a bit few of his efforts tailed off a little bit. He missed 10 tackles against Manly on the weekend out of 61 for a team total, which, that's pretty bad. My major issues with Isaiah, and I'd mentioned it last year when he was at Parramatta, was his edge defence and the fact he overcommits laterally on the inside, and I think that causes a lot of issues on the edge. I still think he, and then to a lesser extent Bloor, when he's been on an edge, they get stuck too far inside, shoulder turn, too overcommitted on the lead runner, and then thinking they've got enough time to push out. But the problem is they're very slow and cumbersome laterally, and their half outside them, I think, is put in two minds by default if they don't get that right. So, look, I think that he's got some deficiencies. I think his defence on an edge is a concern of mine, and not so much him specifically, although the 10 missed tackles speaks to that. It's more so the fact that what he does in creating doubt in his edge defenders around him is a major concern for me. As far as his attacking output, I'm relatively happy. I think his effort areas for the most part were there. We just obviously didn't see the same impact that he had at Parramatta. And a lot of that you can put down to the side as a whole, the halves as a whole, how creative or lack thereof they were, I think.
Yeah, like, obviously you go into a little bit more detail than I do because you are, I guess you're very much a, I don't know, probably say like a connoisseur of looking at those nitty-gritty little details. But all in all, I think we're both in agreement that it was a pass mark, but it definitely didn't meet and even exceed expectations. So frustrating. But yeah, move on to Appy.
Yeah, mate, 11 months ago, Abby drunk made a joke at the expense of the entire club, even though he was heading there. How did his 11 months since that joke was made, how does it stack up in your eyes?
Oh, I think it definitely left a sour taste in my mouth when it happened. But, we've all been there. We've all done it. We've all been, well, depending on how old you are listening to this pod, we've all been drunk and made silly comments. So it was left a sour taste in my mouth, but it was forgivable. And then he's been nothing short of heroic for a lot of our games. He's led from the front. I said to you, I was critical of him at the start of the year. Mentioned it on this pod, and you kind of made me look in a sort of a different light in the fact that it actually wasn't Appy that was the problem. It was literally everyone else. They weren't to his level. And once you kind of looked at that mind frame, you kind of looked at it with that sort of mind frame, it was very hard not to agree. So I think he has by far been our best player. Might not have won the Kelly Barnes medal, as that was on last night, the night before. But, he's just been such a leader the whole time, and nothing's been more telling than when he re-signed. Without, literally, there was no warning, there was no speculation, there was nothing. It's just, we woke up one day, checked the news, and he'd re-signed for a further 2 years. So he sees something. And for a player of that quality to commit like that, that has to lift the rest of the team. So for me, it's an A+++.
Yeah, No doubt. I think from my perspective, in the last 11 months, he could not have done any more to show to the club and the fan base at large how dedicated he is to the cause of this club. Every single thing he did from the moment he came in pre-season or at the start of the year, all the way up to every performance. The re-signing, as you mentioned, which was not a requirement at the time. The pushback early from a broken jaw, despite the fact we're on a hiding to nothing in the bottom end of the table. All these are examples of somebody that we've cried out for a long time who actually wants to invest their time, effort, and energy in transforming this club. Far too many people who we thought were on board and ready to be that person in the past have just taken the easy option and shipped off out the back door or played out their contract and then wrapped things up or pissed off elsewhere. This is finally a bloke who I think we can see is willing to get in the trenches and finally, um, do what is required, at least as best he can, to drag this club out of the quagmire. And I, for one, off the back of that, from one fan, I couldn't be more impressed with him across the board. Not only his playing performance, but his whole attitude to his time at the club thus far as a club captain, the way he leads, the way he talks, and if you talk about the buzzword culture and you put a picture of what you want culture to look like at any football club, he's the bloke.
Yeah.
He's the bloke there that you're leading that.
Yeah, no.
A++ for me too.
Yeah.
101 out of 100. Yeah. He could not have done any more this year in terms of expectation. He's been sublime.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And, since we did the first part of this pod, that, like we said, the awards nights have been on. And I don't know if you saw it, but there was a bit of they showed a little bit of the night itself, and it looked like Appy was just completely enjoying himself, which is pleasing to see because it would have been a very, very hard year for him. He's come from, I don't think he's ever not played finals, apart from maybe that first year at Penrith. But he's won 3 grand finals, won 2 or 3 minor premierships, played for a lot of winning clubs in terms of that culture. And so it would have been a very tough year for him, but to see him just go out and enjoy himself, it was really good to see. So I just hope that the young guys that'll start training with the full-time squad in the off-season, or in the pre-season, sorry, will learn how to be the ultimate professional. And that's what he is. He's the ultimate professional. Everything he does, there's no lack of effort. There's no lack of quality. There's no lack of trying. He does all the little things that you need to get done. We were very critical. Not critical, but we both believe that his best position is 100% dummy half. Not so much more than his defense out wide. He's not a very good defender out wide. And that's fine. That's not for everyone. And, he just had to feel he was a stopgap there for the last few games. But it wasn't for a lack of trying. He never gave up. He never stopped. And that's what I hope that will bleed into these younger guys. Because, for too long, we've had players that probably didn't have that standard. You think about, you went on the pod last week when we discussed the game before, but I don't know if you listened to it, but I read out stats of Noffa, who made 25 metres in 80 minutes.
Yeah.
That's not professional. That's not a professional footballer. That's a guy who's just wanting to get his money. Saw he's bloody, enjoying life right now in Yamba. He's earning off season, clearly. But that's just not a professional in my eyes. And too long we've had that. These people that come in and they don't, we want them to offer something in terms of professionalism, in terms of experience, but they just don't. So it's just very, very pleasing to have that. And, we probably have that in spades now. We have that in Appy. We have that in Bateman. We have that in Clemmer. We'll probably move on to a second to Staines. I think we have that in Staines as well. But yeah, Staines was another off-season recruit. Was off-season? Wasn't last year?
No.
It was off season. Yeah, off season recruit who really exceeded my expectations completely. Just with everything he did, he's not a dream buller in the fact that he's just an out and out athlete and can create something or do something out of nothing. But he's got more guts than most of the players in that team. Runs hard, played a full game with a perforated bowel, came back early from that too. He just, yeah, I've mentioned a couple of times in this pod that he'd be one of my priority re-signings. And the fact that he wasn't, uh, given a farewell at the awards night means that he's not going anywhere, hopefully. So,
yeah, obviously the re-signing of him is something that's still a bit up in the air. For those that weren't aware, three of the notable ones, I guess, so the non-re-signings and an early release that were announced in I guess, a roundabout way yesterday were Brandon Wakeham, so he was farewell. Tukey Simpkins, he was farewell. They're both off contract. But then Ruben Adekora, who still had 1 year remaining, he was farewelled as well. So what that effectively does means, I don't know where Ru is going, but he's effectively off the books now. So that gives us 28 spots at this stage for next year. So we've just opened up another spot, which is good news. The likes of Staines that you mentioned, Seyfarth, a few of these other people that might be pushing for small extensions, they're yet to be re-signed. And so I think we're still going to see a fair bit of movement. Sorry, mate, say that again. You're a little bit quiet there, you're in.
I think Seyfarth still has a year to go. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you are. As far as I think you're wrong. Sorry, I'm relatively certain you're wrong. That he is off contract at the end of this year.
Okay.
Yeah. But
why
yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on Staines. I think he's a low risk, high reward option. I think he's very professional about about going about his business. Sorry, to your point, and he's a big effort play type of player, which I'm a big fan of. He plays a little bit above his weight, but his execution is quite good, and he's got that lick of speed as well, which is invaluable, as we know. He's relatively safe under the high ball. He can fill in at fullback at a pinch if needs be. So I think he's got tremendous value, and yeah, he's probably the first winger pick for me next year. Depending on obviously what happens with Tupou, whether he's getting a crack at centres or not. So yeah, pretty pleased with Staines, albeit we didn't get to see a full season of his. I'd be surprised if he even played 10 games, but yeah, like what we saw.
No, I agree. No.
Well, mate, let's change tack for a little bit quickly. I just want to get your we're not obviously having any more games for the season, so it's a bit hard to run bold predictions on games that we are not playing in, unfortunately. But your grand final pick this year, who do you like the looks of for the big day, and who do you think will get the chocolates?
So I think it's going to be 1-2. I think it's going to be Broncos Penrith. It's very hard to go past them too. I have my sneaking suspicions that the Knights might do what we did in 05, but we'll see how that goes. But I think it's going to be 1-2. And I think Panthers are going to get the 3-peat. So.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with you. I think they're probably the two form teams to comp. Melbourne, if they're on their day, might be able to get Brisbane. It's hard. Yeah, I don't know. I want to like what the Warriors are doing. I don't buy it. Same with the Knights. I'm just, I don't rate these squads, and so I find it hard to see them push through. But to your point, the Knights have won 9 on the trot or something heading into finals, and they're beating all comers. So it's hard to see where it goes from there. But yeah, Brisbane Panthers for mine. I think it's. We may have mentioned this the other day, but I think it's a bit of a concern personally that in the age of the modern professional game of rugby league, that a team can win 3 in a row. That to me is a concern because it's not like they have been pushed to the nth degree to win those 3 either. I think they've almost or just about been favourites for the comp each of those 3 years, and I wouldn't say they've done it easy, no doubt, but they certainly. I wouldn't say they've been pushed tremendously hard, Penrith. They're far and above the best team in the comp at the moment. And have been for the last few years. And so, yeah, I don't know. To me, that says that if there's one team sitting on top of the perch, then to that degree, and they're that dominant, that there's something that needs to be levelled out. Clearly, the salary cap isn't working for a number of reasons, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, their systems are brilliant, their nursery is brilliant, and they've got everything set up fantastically. But in my opinion, no team should be that dominant. It simply shouldn't happen in professional sport. It's pretty rare that you see in any major professional sport around the world a team dominate 3 years in a row. Not that they've won it yet, but obviously they're pretty hot odds-on favourites, aren't they?
They are, yeah. I mean, Hawthorn did it, 13, 14, 15. Richmond went close in 17, 18.
Yeah, they won 3 out of 4 years.
Yeah,
Richmond.
yeah.
Obviously, the Roosters.
Roosters
They won
almost did
3
it.
out of 4 as well. Yeah.
Yeah, like it can it does happen, obviously there's the most famous three-peat times two in the history of in the history of all sport in the Bulls, and it does happen. But yeah, it's
I mean you've only got to go back to the 70s to look at the dominance of St George as well. I understand that.
Great.
Yeah, historically it does happen. Just talking the modern game and how there's obviously a giant incentive to have a relatively even competition and level the playing field. It makes a better product overall. We see the turnover all the time in sports like the NBA and the NFL, for example. You get teams that do sit at the top for a long time, but it's pretty rare to have a team dominate for 2, 3, 4 years on end. So without being challenged, if you get what I'm saying.
No, I do, and it's coming from a team that has been consistent cellar dwellers for the better part of 10 years. It does get frustrating to see that level of dominance. It does get frustrating to see that, that does lead to a myriad of problems on the field as well. Not so much, no more than, I guess, that referee and unconscious bias we always talk about. You got to think that if the refs are on there and they're, it's a team that are just that good, that they shouldn't really be doing much wrong. It should be the other team's fault. So it does open a lot of a can of worms, but it is what it is. And, I will be very happy to see a draft system put into place. But as I just mentioned then, that doesn't work all the time either. When Hawthorn did it, Richmond did it. It's, AFL's had a draft system in place for as long as I can remember. So
yeah, and they have, and you talk about major sporting codes around the world, and you use the example of the big two in America being NBA and NFL. Drafts have been in place for a long time, and that goes a long way to doing it. And it's definitely a discussion for another day, a draft system. But I think if you're putting your foot in, it might be something for the off season. But if you're putting your foot in one camp or the other, I'm definitely pro draft. I have been for a long time, and it's probably to your point, that's probably skewed by the fact that our side has struggled for over a decade, and we would like very much to see the competition evened because it would benefit our side directly. But yeah, I think there's a lot more pros in that department personally. Anyway,
yeah, no, I 100% agree.
Mate, on that note, speak of improvement, we'll just jump to a quick crystal ball into next year. So, obviously, we're crossing fingers and toes for some improvement. I think we can all see that improvement is most definitely possible next year, and we can climb up the ladder a little bit. We're not under any false illusions, mate. Who do you think, however, might be going the opposite way? So, if we're to jump up a few spots, who do you think might slide backwards, whether it's sliding back out of the 8, who overperformed this year, or who do you think we can sort of get the better of next year? Who will we be sitting above?
Yeah, so I'm very confident that the Knights have overperformed. I think they'll slide. I think if they yes, they won against I can't remember who they played on the weekend. Who cares? Whoever they beat on the weekend, yes, they didn't have Ponga or Hastings or anything like that, but the other team had nothing to play for. They weren't a top 8 team, so I think they'll slide.
Was it Bulldogs they played?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, it was. See, that's how much I care about. That's how much I care about the Bulldogs. But I also think I also have a very sneaking suspicion that this is the demise of the Roosters. I think the Roosters are going to start falling soon because not much has changed for them in terms of squad. And have they added anyone next year that's spectacular? Don't think so.
They've got Spencer Leniu, Dom Young coming in, but they're hardly going
Yeah,
to
they're not
move the
world
needle
beaters.
too much.
Mm.
A winger that's probably replacing Tupou or Jackson Paulo on the other wing, and an impact prop off the bench.
Yeah. So I think I'll be, would not be surprised if the Roosters don't make the 8 next year. And I'll be very surprised if the Knights make the 8 next year. What about yourself?
Where do you put the Warriors? Because I put them firmly in that overachieved camp this year. I'm happy for them. I'm happy to see the Warriors winning games. I like seeing teams that haven't, been finding success of late, turn the tables and find a bit of success. That is a good thing, no doubt, for the comp. But they've got leaks of Canberra of 2019 for me, as in everyone in that squad has just redlined and just happened to perform really well, all at the same time, and they've reaped the benefits. Do you see them being able to replicate it, or do you see them a slidable team too?
I don't think they'll be a top 4 team next year, but I think they can. They've got a very, very, very big inclusion coming back next year in RTS. And word is he's not going to be playing fullback; he's going to be playing centre. How long that lasts, who knows? But I don't I wouldn't put money on them to finish top 4, but I don't think they'll make it out. I don't think they'll be knocked out of the 8. I think there's always something to be said, and the Panthers are a perfect example of that. Is camaraderie. There is always something to be said about that. And you look at this Warriors team, and there's no one there shirking responsibility. There's no one there not putting their hand up and wanting to give it a good old crack, which is, as we both know, we both played the game. When you have somebody giving their all, you find it very infectious. And, there's always something to be said about that. So I'm not going to say they're going to slide. I think they'll stay in the 8 next year.
Yep. They, unfortunately, they're up against it a little bit. At least this week, Johnson's been ruled out in the Panthers match, and they've lost Metcalf for the season. So, they. I guess we'll get a chance to see what the Warriors have got against Penrith this weekend in the semi, without the likes of Johnson, and obviously Metcalf has been a bit of a revelation. So, we'll see a little bit more of them on the weekend. Right, mate. Anything else you want to add? We at this stage, everybody, we probably will do. Or the plan is at this stage. So I'm stumbling over my words. The plan is at this stage to do a grand final preview, a short grand final preview, grand final week. We'll just run through the basics and just talk about whoever is in the big dance this year, and just give our farewells, I guess, as we head into the off season. Then the plan is to have a show, probably just the one, late November, early December, where we go through just early preseason photos, a few rumours, anything else that have changed. We all know the West Tigers news cycle moves in 24-hour periods, so a lot happens in a short space of time. So I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about, and then we can all set off for our Christmas holiday break and pick things back up in January. I might just throw it to you, mate. Is there anything else you want to add about the year we've had, or anything else you want to add before we look to wind the show up shortly?
No, but we did, or I did mention that we had the awards night the other night, and kudos to Dream Buller for winning the Kelly Barnes medal. So he's been
Not
our best
only
player.
that, Rookie of the Year, Players Player, and the big one, the Kelly Barnes.
Won all 3.
Yeah,
that's got to give the kid a bit of a big head. But
big clean sweep. He didn't play the first five games of the year, 6 games of the year, and he's come in as a complete rookie and swept it.
It'd be very, very interesting to see who picked, because remember there was that Sheens made that call early on the year about Buller, how he might squeeze his way in and show everyone what's what. Now
his words were he'll be a kid who comes out of nowhere.
Yeah,
certainly done that.
Did. Certainly done that. But I don't know about you, but I've been of the mind for most of the year that Benji's been doing most of the decision making and the coaching. Sheens has been the face to take the brunt so that he doesn't have to. And that's what I believe. Who knows what's happened. So it'd be interesting to see who believed that. If it was Sheens that made that call that he's going to be someone else that's going to come through, if it was Benji. Because if it was Sheens, that's a very, very, very nice parting gift from him to highlight that and bring him into the squad. But if it was Benji, he has an eye for talent, which is very, very pleasing.
Yeah, I think they're in conjunction. I actually, personally, if that's your opinion on the team, fair enough. I think there's a fair few people that share that same opinion. I'm actually of the belief that that's a bit overstated. And when they talk about Benji running the show for most of the year, I don't actually believe that. I believe that he was a heavy component of it, but I fully believe that at least for the first 2/3 of the season, as was the plan, that Tim Sheens was the head coach. Benji Marshall had a fairly decent say, knowing that he was the heir apparent. But I think Sheens certainly far more experienced to just hand those reins over. And so I don't share the same concerns that some people do have when they talk about the fact of, they struggled this year and Benji apparently was calling the shots. Therefore, that is a concern. I don't share those concerns. I actually look at a lot of the team selections, a lot of the approaches, a lot of the defensive structures, attacking structures, all that sort of stuff. And I don't see a lot of Benji in that stuff. He strikes me as quite the innovator. And yeah, I think we're going to see the side look a fair bit different to what we saw, at least for the vast majority of this season. I think heading into next year, there will be distinctions and differences between the two. And I guess we'll get to see, because there's no smoke and mirrors about the fact that he most certainly will be in the hot seat next year. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was back to the original point. It was good to see Buller do that clean sweep and give us a bit of hope, moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And excuse me, further feathering the cap to Appy's performance this year. He was about 12 points or something down behind Buller in the count for the Kelly Barnes about halfway through the season. And he ended up, they were level going into the final game. And Jareen got 3 points and Appy got 2 in the scoring for the Kelly Barnes. So, yeah, that shows how close Appy came as well. And anybody that watched him this season as well would not be surprised by how neck and neck he and Jareen were. In fact, I think Appy was probably the raging favourite for that, just knowing that Jareen was likely to pick up the Rookie of the Year. But, those two stood out, and I think that's why they were so, so popular in the voting, obviously. But, big congratulations to both of those two blokes.
100%.
Folks, I just want to put out, it's been an interesting year, obviously for a lot of reasons. Rough couple of years, but this year we've really been able to gain quite a bit of traction and had more interaction with our listeners than ever before via direct messages, Facebook, on the YouTube page, comments, that sort of stuff as well. And the feedback has just been nothing short of brilliant. We really enjoy doing this stuff. Like, we genuinely do. That's what made us started in the first place. We started with 0 listeners, 0 views, 0 anything. And we just picked up a camera and started talking to each other about stuff that we would talk about all week, every week with the side that we love. So we're so pleased to see that people have really enjoyed, the content that our humble little podcast puts out. And it means so much when people give us the feedback that they give us. So thank you guys for listening, and thanks for tuning in this year particularly. We're not going anywhere. So you best be sure that we're back next year bigger and better than ever. And we're going to be riding out this low point with the lot of you. And hopefully next year there'll be a little bit more to crow about. There's certainly going to be lots more to break down. All sorts of news and all sorts of criticism coming left, right and centre, as our great club tends to attract. We just love to continue to do it with all you guys. So we can't thank you enough from both of us. I'll speak for Toby when I say that. As we often say every single week, if you enjoy what we do, let people know. Give it to a Tigers mate, or share it on a fan page or on a forum, or just mention it, because all that stuff really helps. And if people are enjoying it and people are enjoying our opinions on things and whatnot, then that makes us happy, and that's all we could ask for. It's more than what we could ask for, to be perfectly honest. So, guys, once more, thank you so much for the season. thanks for tuning in, and thanks for getting in touch with us over the course of the year. Do you want to add anything, mate? Or
No, I just wish I wish somebody from the West Tigers would call us and thank us because, I mean, we're probably what did someone say? We're the top two Tigers podcasts in Australia at the moment. So come on, yeah, West Tigers, just give us some merch or something. Jesus,
something like that. Far be it from me to toot our own horn. We are the
more than
humble
happy to.
podcast, but I will note that we are the highest rated West Tigers podcast of the ones that I know. We're 4.9 out of 5 stars, and the other 3 are 4.8. So good on, go us.
Go us! I didn't know that. Let's know.
Yeah. No, look, we always at the end of every show we always plug the other 2 podcasts, the non-club podcast, which would be West Life podcast and West Tigers podcast. Those guys do wonderful stuff as well. We consume both, mate, don't we? And just can't get enough Tigers media because the more perspectives, the better. And from our perspective, we're all on the same page, and we're all supposed to be driving the same car to improve this club as best we can in our own way. Be it commentary, advice, perspectives, whatever the case may be. So get around those podcasts if you haven't already. Make sure that if you are interacting with those podcasts and you're interested and you want to share the word about the show, please do, because things like collaborations and that sort of stuff are not out of the question down the line, and that's stuff we're super interested in. I love the opinions of some of those guys on those shows, and I'd love to be able to face to face organise that sort of stuff too. It only adds, I think, to the Tigers content that we're able to put out as well. So that's all good stuff. Guys, I'm getting to the rambling stage, but this has been part B. We will see you in grand final week. Make sure you pop in. In the meantime, shoot us a message, throw us a comment, share whatever you want to share. It's all good stuff. And for the upteenth time, thank you so much for tuning in the Tiger Town podcast this year. It's been a pleasure for us, as always. And one thing, mate, that we never shirk, one responsibility that we never shy away from is the end of every show, even the end of losing 72-0, we still say things like
74
go the mighty West Tigers forever and always.
Yeah, I'll repeat that, but I'll just say go the Tigers.